Hi there. So I wanted to talk more about the major um, sort of signs and indications that you've got a wounded inner child. And there are so many different indications and so many different uh, presentations of that wounding and fragmentation that I put more detail into the manual that comes with the course. So you'll see all of those in the manual. But I wanted to start to just name a few so that you can recognize that this might be yourself with this. So first off, major indications that you've a wounded inner child. You could have anxiety. Well, all of us will have anxiety with a wounded inner child. Uh, and repeating episodes of extreme anxiousness, sometimes without even a cause. You don't know why you're anxious, but there is a background anxiety there most of the time. And it manifests in so many different ways. Anxiety, it could be something like nail biting, pulling out your own hair, self-harming, drinking, self-soothing with things that are not good for you. You could also be experiencing panic attacks, agoraphobia, um, sort of all those things you could be sort of expressing with the anxiety, yeah, and having just this nervousness, always on guard, which is just something that you can't get rid of. It's always there, and you will receive triggers for that in just simple things. And the triggers are reminding the body and the nervous system of the trauma that first occurred and the experience that you had that was uh, traumatic or was internalized as traumatic by your inner child. Also, repeating attacks of depression without realizing why you're depressed, but sort of going down deep black holes at times and not being able to maintain your balance and equilibrium, especially with your emotional body. That's a biggie for us that have had wounded inner child or fragmented inner child. We have a fragmented and a totally unbalanced emotional body. So our emotional body goes into overdrive without us being able to control it. So you might be 1 minute feeling fine, happy, whatever. The next minute you've been triggered and suddenly you're in floods of tears, you're feeling nervous, there's a sense of sort of doom around, and you don't know where it's come from. Yeah, so very much emotional imbalance all the time. Yeah, and you find it hard to control your emotional body. Also, disassociation, which is when we check out mentally from a situation or an event or a part of our lives. So disassociation creates memory problems. You forget what you're doing, your inability to concentrate, you lose your train of thought, you repetitive actions that you do over and over again, forgetting you've already done it. You've got selective hearing. Some people can not hear certain things, they're not meant to with the trauma. So that's another thing. Losing time. 1 minute it's 9 o'clock in the morning, the next time you look it's 10:30 and you don't know where the time's gone. 1 minute you were browsing something maybe on the internet or you were watching a TV program or whatever you were doing, the next minute you look and you've lost an hour or 2 hours and you wonder where you went. Whereas actually that quite often that will be a trigger that you have received, and you go into dissociation, you come out of body, you actually just sort of glaze over. Yeah, so that's another sort of manifestation of the inner child being fragmented or traumatized and needing major healing. Also, you might have been diagnosed with bipolar dissociative identity disorder, which is split personality. You may have alters, and you may be aware of that or not. What I mean by that is that you have different personalities, and we've all heard or read books or heard stories or watched films about split personality, when someone's got like 25 alters or 25 different personalities or even 50 different personalities, and we think, oh my god, how did that happen? Well, that can be a result of childhood trauma, extreme childhood trauma, and the personality splits into different the mind splits into different personalities that hold different parts of the trauma, and are acting like a protective mechanism, actually. Now, look, I'm no expert on this at all. I'm approaching this from an energetic level and my expertise in energy and quantum healing. So for more information about dissociation and split personality and bipolar and dissociative identity disorder, go and find and do your research. There's plenty of experts that have studied for years, psychotherapists and doctors, and so you can get that information. There's lots of books on that sort of thing nowadays, and whatever. But I'm looking at it from a energetic viewpoint, and I'm looking at it from looking at the split personality and the alters, and looking and saying that's fragmented inner child. They are fragmented inner child parts, and they need to be reintegrated together to form one personality. The problem is, it depends on how they were fragmented. If yourself, you did it in a natural sort of formation due to the trauma, I would feel it was much easier to reintegrate back with the healing. If you were programmed, MK Ultra'd, satanically, ritually abused, we're into a different ball game. We're into a different arena where more and more complex things were done to split the mind and split the personality, and that's when we get into sort of very, very more complex work. And one of these inner, my course that I'm doing now will not do the work for you, and I have to be honest with that. So if you are if you know you are MK Ultra'd, then you would need specialist one-to-one work with someone like myself, or someone that you feel drawn to, that would be able to help you reintegrate those personalities if they can, and also reverse the energetic damage that was done. And MK Ultra is the it's a mind alteration programming that has been going on a long time, initiated originally by the Germans in Nazi Germany in the 1930s. So that's where it sort of originated from. And then I think it was Project Mockingbird, where it went over to the USA after the war, and the USA developed methods for MK Ultra, which is awful, disgusting. So there's more you can find out on that, but I'm just sort of skimming the surface there and just explaining that there is deliberate dissociation and deliberate programming, MK Ultra programming, which has really then fragmented a person's mind to use for different reasons. Putting programs in there like Delta programming for assassin programming, baby doll programming, which is all about sort of kitten programming, which is all about sex kitten and sort of luring men in, espionage used in the spy area, and all of that stuff, government stuff. So I just wanted to explain a little bit about that. And sometimes people are not aware they've got alters, and I've got experience of that. I've got experience of seeing people that don't realise they've got alters, but they have, which is a bit freaky, I must admit. But yeah, and also I have suffered from dissociation in regards to the fact that my inner 5-year-old child fragmented at 5, and I had her locked away, and I disassociated from the trauma and the abuse completely, because that was the only way I could survive it. We all do it in a different way. We all have different methods of coping and all different methods of self-preservation. And it was a self-preservation. And I actually am, on one level, pleased that I did that, because if I'd not done that, I'm not sure I could be sat here talking to you right now. Shall we put it that way? I don't think I would have survived adulthood, and I may have already checked out of the planet by now if I'd not disassociated and not had any conscious memories of the trauma and abuse that I went through and the torture that I went through as a little girl. And that disassociated, fragmented part, I'd parked away and I'd bricked her up, and she was not to be seen and heard of ever again, because that was the only way I could cope with the pain that I had experienced, if you know what I'm saying. And I was very blessed and lucky to be able to reintegrate her last year, and that has just been like life-changing for me, as I mentioned in the introduction. So just wanted to talk about that. So disassociation, yeah, is one of them. Unable to function in everyday life, unable to undertake self-care, routines, cooking, shopping, doctors, dentists, keeping the house clean, just everyday things that most people take for granted. Someone who's in extreme child fragmentation will find that very hard to cope with daily life. Maybe not being able to cope with money, banking, any problems, any things that other people would find easy to do, you don't find easy to do at all. Also, you can attract emotionally unavailable people and similar people with their own disassociation problems. So very much we recognize each other and tend to hang around each other. And also you will possibly have a problem with relationships, and as I say, not being able to connect on an emotional and deep and profound level with anybody because of that level of fragmentation and inner child wounding that prevents that from taking place. And you do that as a preventative measure to prevent yourself from being hurt again. So that could be resonating with you as well. Yeah, you could have a history of relationship failures, being obsessed with people, being fantasizing about people, sort of you being attracted to people who are domineering and controlling. So it's almost like you're repeating the abusive cycles that you may have experienced as a child in your adulthood. So that can be another symptom of the wounded inner child. Also, addiction to alcohol, drugs, you know, whatever your drug of choice is, self-soothing, trying to push down that sense of inadequacy and emptiness that you feel when you have lost your identity and your child self. It's almost like you lose your identity. You don't know who you really are and who you're supposed to be, because you didn't have that fundamental time as a child to form that sense of self-identity. And that is a very big problem, I feel, for those suffering from inner child wounding and fragmentation, is not knowing who you are and what you're supposed to be doing. And you tend to probably look at other people and try and sort of emulate them or copy them, because you just don't know who you are yourself. That's a really important one, I feel, to mention. You could have had problems with abduction, UFOs, seeing aliens, being in a spacecraft, dreaming about UFOs, spacecraft, aliens, all of that sort of thing. And that's linked really with more of the starseed element of our incarnation. So those of you that recognise yourself as a starseed and light worker will maybe have more of that sort of problem, shall we say. So that's something important that you need to think about, whether you had issues as a child with alien abduction, or you have had bad dreams, or you're scared of aliens, or that you're actually obsessed with them, or you can't get enough of them. So that's another big indicator. Yeah. Night terrors as a child, so bad nightmares, bedwetting, memories of being taken, uh, or horrible sort of images as a child. That could be another indication. Um, so that's another thing. Uh, Another thing is falling into abusive cycles and relationships with others, trauma bonding with your parents and family and friends that have abused you. So it's almost like you lose the ability to be able to step away from them because you're so busy trying to keep your family space, the only place where you feel you belong, where anybody slightly understands you or knows where you came from, who should love you and support you and have your back. Quite often that will trauma bond us to the very abusers of us, like our parents, like our cousins, like our brothers and sisters, or uncles, whoever abused you. I mean, I won't go into great detail of my background, but I had two separate uncles abusing me at the same time from two sides of the family. So an uncle from my mother's side and an uncle from my dad's side, and also a cousin was abusing me from my dad's side as well. Look at that. Plus a whole group of strangers that were, because I was ritually abused, a whole group of strangers that were sort of in a group. And one of them ended up, well, they weren't strangers as such. One was my family GP, would you believe it, a woman, when I was very young. So there was a woman GP, part of the ritual abuse, or part of the group behind it, and a dentist of mine. So I had it everywhere. I couldn't even escape or get any type of respite or any type of help from the doctor that was treating us. And even the dentist was part of the group that were abusing me. I mean, that's horrible, isn't it? And I know some of you that may have bought this course may have experienced the same thing. And that is terrible. And that does bring up the sense of mistrust. We don't trust anyone. We find it very hard to trust people because the very people that we thought should love us and protect us never did. That's why you lose your sense of trust. You lose your sense of trust in family, friends, best friends, husbands, wives. Anybody new that comes into your life, you're very guarded. You've got to be careful. What they after, blah, blah, blah. You might not consciously be thinking that, but your subconscious and your wounded child is doing that and driving that. So that's another important one to remember. Another thing that is very prevalent in those of us that have been abused, and those that have got this inner child issues, is our sense of wanting to daydream, to escape the present moment. We don't acknowledge the present moment. We're always looking to tomorrow. We're always looking like, when this happens, I'll be happy. When I have the big house, I'll be happy. When this happens, I'll be happy. We've lost the ability to find a peaceful and serene self. We're always looking to the future. We're always looking to tomorrow. Tomorrow will be better, because that is linked to the abuse and what you were living day by day. And when you're living day by day in abuse and there's no escape from it, the only way you can escape is to daydream, isn't it? It's to project yourself into the future, because that's where you feel you'll have escaped the abuse. And that very much resonates with my wounding and what I went through. And even now, my ability to daydream and vision and go somewhere else There's nothing wrong with that in balance and in visioning your future and then going and taking action towards your dreams and everything that you want to achieve. But it's when you use it continually to escape your problems right now and what you need to deal with. Because as we know, the present moment is the most powerful. Okay, so that's another important one. And I just wanted to go through those to give you some sort of sense of, that you have got these issues. Also, control issues, wanting to be in control, finding it very hard to delegate or let others take what you need to do. You micromanage your life in fine detail. You want everything to be just right. You don't trust others to do things for you because they're going to mess up and you're going to get disappointed. You might develop temper tantrums, wanting everything your own way. This is the inner child with the insecurity, because you need to be in control, because if you're not in control, you could get abused again, you could get hurt again, you could get attacked again. So you have to take control so that you manage your environment. Also, other things, the shadow aspects also is sort of you starting to be childlike and trying to manipulate people, and sort of being very clever at emotionally manipulating people to make them feel guilty and to do things your way. And that is, again, a symptom of that inner child problem. So that's another thing, if you recognise or identify yourself with that. And finally, I'm just going to mention the hyper alert mode. So this is where you're completely on guard all the time. It's like you're a sort of soldier on duty with a bayonet in your hand, yeah? And you're like this, and you're ready. You're ready to defend yourself at any moment. So constantly your body and your nervous system, everything is on guard. So you're constantly looking for danger and being ready to run, even though you might think, I'm not in danger, I'm fine, I'm in my own home, I'm fine. But your inner child and that nervous system, emotional body, it's on guard, it's waiting for another attack. And when it recognises something, or it puts together something that happened when you got attacked, and it sees it again, it's like, oh my God, it's going to happen. And then suddenly you'll react and you might get a trigger, and then your whole body will go into sort of like hyper alert, and you might start to get stomach problems. Very much for me, it's stomach problems. Stomach problems start, or you get a headache, or you get all spooked out, or you start to feel a shiver down your body. You go into panic attack mode a little bit. You start maybe having problems breathing, or hyperventilating. There's so many different ways that we react. You might run to the loo more often because you're nervous. You might have accidents. You might start getting incontinent because of the trigger. You've been triggered and you don't know what's triggered you. So that's another aspect of it. And you might develop adrenal fatigue. Your nervous system is just shot at. Your kidneys and adrenal system is just tired out because constantly it's pumping out cortisol, which is that hormone that keeps you on guard. Your adrenaline, you're constantly living off adrenaline. They say adrenaline junkies, don't they? I worked in a very high pressure environment in the hospital, and we lived off adrenaline because we were constant. Well, I don't mean literally, but we were producing it because we were constantly getting life-threatening situations for patients, and they were coming in on death's door. So we had to run around like silly devils to save their lives, and that was an environment I enjoyed, interestingly, because I like that high. I could react to that, and that evidently was, part of the wounding of me as a inner child as well. So many ways that we manifest the symptoms, and we show signs of the wounded inner child. There's more than this. So this is just some of them that you might recognise yourself and what you do. And it's really good to work on the triggers. It's really good to find out your triggers, to find out what bothers you. Quite often it's subconscious and you don't realise, but the more you start to look for it, the more you'll find it. And the times when you have been triggered and you've gone into a nervous, maybe half an hour of nerves and shaking or feeling a panic attack or running to the toilet 3 times in 10 minutes, sit down and work out how you got triggered. What was it that triggered you? I'll just give you one example of a trigger recently for myself. So I have an incident in my teenage years of being attacked on a boat and being raped. Okay, on a boat. Not good, I know. And I had buried that memory and disassociated from it. Now, what was interesting was that a little while ago I went on holiday and I stayed at this tiny little place by the seaside, and what I didn't realise is the bedroom had been decked out like a boat. Now when we first went in I didn't notice, and there was portholes, like pretend portholes in the bedroom, in the ceiling, and they looked like it was a boat. Now I didn't notice that at first, and my brain evidently hadn't worked out that it looked like a boat from that side. We get a day in and suddenly I realised I was triggered and that I was running to the toilet. I seemed on edge. I couldn't relax. I had a terrible night's sleep. Like, what's all this about? I'm on holiday. I should be relaxed. I should be easygoing. What's going on? And I realised, I actually sat down and just meditated just for a moment, which is always a brilliant idea. Hand over heart. You can always call in your soul guides and angels and your higher self to step forwards. And I said, what's triggering me? Show me. I've got a trigger. I know I have. Show me. And they did. I looked up, and the 2 portholes were staring down at me from my bed, in the bedroom. And immediately I clicked it, like, oh my God, it looks like a boat. Boom. My body had recognised, and my nervous system had observed the triggers and reminders of what happened. Because remember, we have cellular memory in our body. So my body was reacting and remembering what had happened, and it was on guard. So I'd been triggered by the portholes and the fact that my bedroom looked like a boat. So immediately what I did, I put my hand on my shoulder and I said to my body, it's okay. Now listen, this isn't a boat. This is a house. We're on holiday. We're safe. There's nothing to fear. Nothing's going to happen to me. I'm completely safe. This isn't a boat. And I put my hand again on my shoulder and went, this isn't a boat. This is a house. And I looked round at all the things that told me it was a house. Yeah, like the bricks, and they were under the ground, and I showed my body the ground, and I walked to the garden, showed my body the garden, and said, look, my feet's on the grass. I'm not on the water. And I could feel my body relax. Yeah, and I calmed down and relaxed, and the trigger stopped. That was amazing. Just by actually showing my body it was okay, and talking to my body, talking to myself and saying, this is okay, this isn't a boat. Right, and then I relaxed and calmed down, and I was fine. So it is, we've got to really identify our triggers as well, because that really helps us. That helps us to identify what we still have to heal, what we still have to lift, what we need to tell ourselves and, sort of lift out of ourselves in regards to the trauma we experienced either as a younger woman, younger man, or as a child. So that's just something I thought I'd bring up as part of it. Okay, so I hope some of these things, you're thinking, wow, yeah, this is me. Um, you know, the, the thing is, wounded inner child, fragmented inner child, whatever we experience as an inner child, it affects all of our life. Every part of our life is affected by what we experienced. And at times you might not realize that your own consciousness will not realize that actually your reality is being completely controlled by your internal feelings, your internal uh, viewpoint, the filters that you've got, which tell you what is safe and what isn't safe and what's good and what's bad, which completely could be reversed or completely wrong. You've got to be you've got to put your big girl pants on and your big boy pants on here and realize that not the world might be different to what you think it is, and you also have got to think I might be wrong. It's about being humble and having humility to know that you might be wrong about the world, and that what you've experienced as a child has affected your ability to see the good in the world and what we can do in the world. So you've got to have that humility to know everything that I've experienced is experience, and I can change now, and I can turn around my life. I can completely change how I see the world, and I completely can lift the fear, the trauma, I can lift the anxiety. I can completely change how I look at the world by healing my inner child and knowing that my inner child, and the trauma that I experienced is lowering my vibration. And when I do the work to heal my inner child and work on my triggers and try and think of the world like, oh, wow, my life can change now, then your whole vibration rises on that, because the fear and the disassociated memories that you have within you will lower your vibration. And by working on your inner child and those fragmented inner parts, knowing your triggers and what you struggle with, then you're halfway there, because awareness is everything. And when you have the awareness of what's triggering you, and you have the awareness of what you need to lift and heal, then you're halfway there. So stay positive, because it's a continuing journey. We're always peeling another layer of the onion as such, but wow, the inner child work and starting to dig deeper, starting to dig in the layers of the inner child and working on that can change your whole life, because your whole, as I say, perception of your life is coloured and filtered by your experiences as a child. So it's one of the most important things we can do for our spiritual journey and on our ascension journey as well. So there you go. So I hope that's been helpful for you, and we will continue with lots of other journeys in this course that will help you to sort of deconstruct what's been going on in your life and what you need to sort. And by knowing your triggers and what you've been doing to compensate for those triggers which you didn't even realize, it's so tiring, isn't it? so tiring trying to compensate for something that just needs to get healed. So thank you for listening, and speak to you soon.